So we've got so many attendees tonight that have made a special point of joining us. Why don't we go ahead and start? We won't start this as an official meeting of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, and if Dan and Rich do get on, we'll convene the meeting formally and address the agenda as it's been prepared, but so that we make the best use of everybody's time. I think that I think we would really like to hear or talk to John, or hear from John Gerdes with CUSP, and also we have CJ Runge with Mile High Youth Corps, who has been working towards a game plan in the event that we are successful in winning the COSWAP grant at the end of March. So I'd like to at least have some input from CJ and what she's looking for as part of that grant. And we can use this time as sort of we have the mayor-elect, Todd Dixon is on, Sean Ives, and is Nick on? Nick Donatello? Sean is will be joining the Board of Trustees in May. So we have, and then there's Becky Frank has joined us, town manager for Green Mountain Falls. So I think that it would be a good use of our time to discuss two major projects that are pending, and at least from CUSP's standpoint, where we stand. I know there was some, last time I got an update was at the Pikes Peak outdoor recreation meeting, and I think John said there was some confusion about the way that the grant had been written by Michelle Conley. And I just would like to know kind of where we stand on that, John, if you don't mind sharing with us from your perspective, from CUSP's perspective, where we are.
Sure. So one, Michelle's no longer with us, so that left us in a state of confusion. So I lost one forester, had to train another forester and get them up to speed. Adrian, who I think comes to some of your meetings, would have been here tonight, but he had a baby. Him and his wife had a baby last week, so he's in bonding mode. So we had two different grants. We had a first restoration of wildfire risk mitigation grant, which is a state Forest Service grant. And we have a state fire assistance grant that Green Mountain Falls was in. The state fire assistance is actually a federal grant that passes through the state Forest Service. So it took some time to try to figure out the funding scenarios and who has what and who can contribute what. I think at least for this year, we're straight on that. The town has 15,000, you said, in 2022. Is that correct, Becky, that you had told me you could put towards it? Do we need to split that fiscal years, or is it all available in the spring, or?
That is the funding that the board has allocated for 2022 fire mitigation funding to match the CUSP project. Okay.
And then we have so between those two grants, and I sent Becky a summary, we were supposed to, between 2021 and 2022, complete about 8 acres of private and about 30 some acres of town land to create a fuel break. Last year, nothing was done because of the transition and because of COVID impacts, etc. So trying to catch up, but the funding's not going to let us catch up to that acreage. So this year, we finally came up with a plan. Well, before I get to that, the other part of that is most of it's going to be handwork, just because of the steepness of the slopes and stuff. We did have several companies look at it and try to get estimates, and one of them out of Oregon specializes in steep slope, but their estimate was so high that we would get very little done. So the plan is 2022, 12 acres, and we will use the Swift crews to get that done. And the Swift crews run about 3,500 a day for a 20-man crew. We won't quite need that many. So we had to do some conversions to a per acre cost. So it'll be about 2,000 an acre. We'll get about 12 acres done. Part of that too was Colorado Springs Utilities contributes that, and we generally put their money to where it will do, where they have interest, where they have properties that may be adjacent, or in Green Mountain Falls, in this case, if it goes over the hill, it hits their property. Last year we had 100,000. This year they cut us back to 50,000, and that was supposed to be Green Mountain Falls plus Catamount Ranch open space up in Teller County. So we were supposed to put 20,000 towards Green Mountain Falls, but with that cut, that wasn't going to be possible. So I took money from Catamount Ranch, reduced the acreage there so we can get as much done in Green Mountain as possible. So we'll have 17,000 from Springs Utilities. We'll have 15,000 from the town, and then for the private property, we do cost shares with those, and we have several property owners lined up. Most of them are small properties. Usually that's a 60% property owner pays, and 40% the grant will pick up. And then the other key to that is the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. And we consider that private property, so we'll be working on some of that too. So we're gonna have Swift crews doing town property, Stone Mountain Fire out of Lake George, which is a private company, doing the private property. So we'll have different hand crews in there, and we're starting to work through some of that paperwork now and get contracts with those guys. When Adrian gets back, he'll start doing what's called license to enter with the private property owners and with the town. So we have permission to be on the property and do what we say we're going to do. He'll set up the cost shares. Unfortunately, I don't have a map of where he was thinking the town property was going to be treated this year. I know he's been out and done some flagging, but I don't have that information with me, and I couldn't get hold of him to get it. So we're looking at 12 acres this year, and then hopefully Springs will come back with our normal level of funding next year, plus the grant, plus whatever the town can contribute, and we'll start catching up. We have to 2024 to catch up. That's when the grant ends. And we'll do everything we can to catch up. And if we, looks like we can't, if next year we start running into problems again, I'm gonna start turning over rocks looking for money. So I think Green Mountain, every time I go down the pass, I see this. It is so critical that we get you guys a fuel break and some mitigation on a lot of those properties in that area. So that's where we're kind of standing right now. The timeline, I'm hoping some of the crews can work, hand crews can work in winter. I'd like to get Swift up there as soon as we can get them up there. Because once fire season starts, if they get a fire, they're gone. Don't know when they return. The other downfall with working with Swift too is if there's prison shutdowns or COVID issues and stuff, they may not come out. But like I said, we're starting the paperwork with them, and hopefully we'll complete that pretty soon. So with that, I'm open to questions. And Becky, I don't know if you shared this summary I put together for you, but I could also send that out tomorrow.
I have not shared it. I was hoping that you'd be able to explain it. If you'd like to share it with the group, and then that way, if they have questions, they can reach out directly to you. I'd appreciate that. Thanks, John, for explaining everything. I do have one question though. Just I just want to make sure that and it's kind of my interpretation that the town intended to continue to allocate funding towards fire mitigation each year, which is what got us in this process over in this grant cycle over the course of several years. It's my intention that they continue to do the same, and it looks like from what the document that you put together that we are on target with that as long as that continues.
Yes, as long as funding holds out. So between the two grants, over the life of the grants, which are 3 to 4 years, we have to be done with them by the end of 2024. And again, and Michelle has been back in Kansas because her father had passed away. We didn't really get a hold of her. So looking at where the life of the grant, it looks like about 50,000 or so was committed from the town. And again, that's spread over several years and stuff. It looks like, let's see, about 40-some thousand was committed from Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. And then the rest is private. And again, Powder Springs will catch up with some of their funding too.
Okay, perfect. And I guess my question then is just going into budget season for next fall. Any, you know, knowing that we lost a year essentially, I have a couple of questions. A ends up being, is there an opportunity to extend this grant deadline beyond 2024? Just knowing that, you know, stuff happened and it was out of our control. Could you check in on that? And then if not, I think it would be great to come up with a funding plan of how much additionally would be needed in those, you know, other years to be able to split the cost of what was intended to be a 4-year grant over 3 years, so that in the last 2 years of it, we're able to catch up.
Okay, yeah, I will check with the State Forest Service and see what the possibility is of extending grants.
Thank you very much, John.
So, and I will let you know.
John, this is David Douglas. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, good. So you said that it looks like right now, based on your estimates, that in 2022, you feel like you're going to be able to get 12 acres in Green Mountain Falls. How is that
On town property?
On town, that's town property. Okay.
Yes.
And you said that you don't have a clear picture from Adrian as to what 12 acres we're talking about. You know, we had identified 2 areas in town where we really wanted to prioritize. One was some town right-of-way on an area we call the Iona right-of-way, and then a continuation along the Thomas Trail, which CUSP had already started. So
Right.
Do either one of those 2 projects ring any bells for you, or
The Thomas Trail does, because I know we worked on Thomas Trail some last year. So, and what was the name of the right of way again? What did you call that?
Iona? It's a street it's a right of way for a street that never got built.
Okay.
That the area is very, we're desperately trying to get the remediation of the fuels done because it's just so bad.
Is that right away? What's the terrain like? Is it steep or is it relatively flat?
It's fairly steep.
Okay.
Adrian, I was with Adrian when he flagged that area, just FYI. So he's familiar with it. I think from the town's perspective, one question is, how do you guys verify property boundaries in that situation? Would it be we were thinking as an idea, we could send out perhaps notification to property owners adjacent to that spot just to sort of get their blessing, or at least a heads up, or, you know, if something's right, you know, because the GPS Adrian was using was, you know, probably plus or minus 10 feet or whatever on a 40-foot right of way. So
Okay.
how do you guys usually handle that?
So looking at this, and one thing I didn't mention is $945 of in-kind from the town, you know, and this is obviously before you and Becky got there. So $945 of in-kind from the town to determine right-of-way and parcel boundaries. So you would be on your salary and would use that as in kind to do that. If you have specific parcel information that Adrian can get from you, he can certainly GPS things. And then we'd bring it back and put it in our database and have our GIS specialists go through it.
I mean, we don't have any parcel boundaries that are any more accurate than El Paso County. So that's not, very accurate. But I was thinking maybe with the town staff could just reach out to the owners there and just kind of maybe even with some sort of agreement and, defer to Becky on some of this, but just as an idea, have an agreement that where they understand that, there's a plus or minus factor of accuracy. And if they have any trees that are absolutely, precious to them or family heirloom trees or something, then they could sort of mark that.
Okay.
And, does that make sense as far as?
Absolutely. We could flag those kind of trees once the
Okay.
are contacted.
Okay.
Let us know.
John, you asked about the terrain. The good thing about the Iona piece of land is it's accessible both from above and below by existing roads.
Okay.
Unlike the Thomas Trail, which requires that the sawyers hike up and do their work, and there's no way to get chippers or anything up there. But at least
Right.
the Iona piece is accessible from the upper level and from the lower level. Fairly good accessibility, even though it's steep terrain.
If you had to take a guess on the slopes on there, two questions. Slopes, how steep would you say in a percentage basis? Are they 30%, 40%? And what's the density and are the trees like? You have real large trees, so it's only hand trees, or can we get a masticator in there to take some of those down?
The dead trees
We usually
I'll start with-
handle 4 to 8 inches or so.
Yeah, the trees that are dead in that Iona tract are fairly large
Okay.
trees. And there's not as a lot of density through there. How would you characterize it, Nate? You've walked it with Adrian.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's it's definitely steep, rocky. There's a social trail that kind of goes through there to connect Hondo to Iona, and but it's steep and rocky, and there's some some ravine. The lower portion has a pretty significant the below Iona, I guess it would be, or Falls Avenue, or whatever that is. There's a really steep ravine there, so I don't know. I also
probably be hampers.
I have some drone photos of the area, if that's helpful, just to sort of get eyes on it without having to be on site. And I could also probably provide you a contour map of the area as well, if that's helpful for your planning.
Okay. Yeah, and Adrian will be back. He's supposed to be off leave Saturday and be back, start working. And this is one of his top priorities. He has 2 pretty big projects going. One is going to be Green Mountain Falls, and the other one's Cripple Creek Mountain Estates. So I'm going to keep him busy, but and then the other part of this whole thing is when we lost Michelle, so we just advertised for a wildfire mitigation program manager. I think the application closes tomorrow, so I'll see what I get. And the idea is to work with communities doing this kind of work, just to take some of the burden off Adrian. Once Michelle left, I had to pull my forester in from Bailey too, and have him working in Manitou and Woodland Park, different areas. So.
Hey, John, this is Todd Dixon.
But we're getting there.
Hey, John.
Yes.
This is Todd Dixon. Hey, could you walk through the acreages from like what was originally planned to what we're looking at now by year?
Yeah. So again, there's two different grants, and the easiest one is the State Fire Assistance Grant, which is the federal grant. In 21-22, and since it's federal, it's a little bit different timeline. So by the end of 22, it was 15 acres of town property. The other grant is the Forest Restoration and Wildfire Risk Mitigation, or furworm grant, and that's through the State Forest Service. In 2021, we were supposed to do 3 acres of private and 13 acres of town. And in 2022, 5 acres of private and 10 acres of town property. So with the costs that we're getting, the one private company was like $4,500 an acre. So part of the issue we ran into is some of the acreage or the cost was underestimated in the grant. Swift is a little cheaper. So we'll just, like I said, we're going to put them on the town property, and we'll do 10 or 12 acres in 2022. And then we'll put Stone Mountain on catching up on the private properties. But the private properties are usually pretty small parcels. Most of them not even an acre in size. And so it's probably a couple trees here and there. I'm more concerned with the town property because that's probably the larger tracts that are going to need it. So that's where we're going to put a lot of our focus with Swift. And then of course you guys, I don't know if you received the Coast Swap grant or you're applying for the Coast Swap grant, but I would assume that's why CJ's on to talk about that and working probably on town properties, I would assume. I mean, the more you guys can get done, the better. And I'm not picky, whoever you decide to use, whether it's Youth Corps or us or Swift or private contractors. The important thing is protection of property and life.
Yeah, so the 15 acres associated with the federal grant, has any work been done on that? And are we at risk for any of that activity?
We're going to try to, we just kind of looked at it as Green Mountain Falls, and we're combining the acreage. So no work's been done. Again, with the loss of a forester and getting contracts going and stuff. We lost last year. So that's where we'll start making it up. And like I said, we've had several contractors look at it, but those guys specialize in mastication. And nobody wants to put a machine on some of those slopes. So then we have to turn to hand crews. And the availability, we did have some hand crews. We had Seed Masters, I believe, gave us an estimate in Green Mountain Falls too, and they were just outrageous. So try to get the acreage done with the money we have for this year, and then start juggling for the remaining grant stuff. So Colorado Springs cut their funding, and that was a bureaucratic move. That wasn't anything punish us. It was somebody saw a line item sitting in their budget and just wiped it out.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll return some of that funding next year, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah, like Becky was saying, any information you can provide to us to assist with especially our 2023 budgeting activity.
Okay.
Would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
As far as going after grants, I think there are a couple other grant opportunities we may have through the Kirkpatrick family, and we may be trying to go after a large grant with that. And so we may want to be looking at how much can we actually get done under a large grant situation.
Okay. And then the other thing just to throw in there for work over the next couple of years, nothing's been funded yet, but I sat in on both Teller County Wildfire Council meeting for Coast Swap and El Paso County for Coast Swap. And both are talking about, is there a way especially with Green Mountain, that we can work in that area and bleed across the county lines, just to start working up and down the pass. I mean, it would be ideal because we're going to be working in Manitou also at some point in the future to work at Manitou on up the pass. Because when you stand there and look at the fuels that are there, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it would make sense to me if we had like I don't know, regional type high level look at it, because basically what you're saying is you want to look at creating the best bang for the buck over a large region and clearing out as much fuels as you can to try to, if we have a fire here, if we have like say a fire line that goes up and down, I forget what that ravine is off in between us and Manitou Springs, but it may make sense to have some activity there, and then come along again at a large scale, and there may be another good fire line.
I think he froze.
Yeah, we lost you, Todd.
Good pose though.
So
Yeah, I wanted to echo that a little bit too, just from, both the El Paso County and the Teller County's interest in the co-swap. They certainly prioritize the UPass corridor as being critical infrastructure, and being able to do projects in that area. I think that we're well positioned.
yeah, the other one we're keeping our eye on for a couple of different types of projects. One is river restoration. One's for us is just the new infrastructure money that's coming out. Nobody's laid out a process for that at all yet. I understood there was going to be money for mitigation and things, but there's also all kinds of legislation through the General Assembly right now. None of it passed, but we keep an eye on all that too. And anytime you have ideas for potential funding, if you're looking at grants stuff, feel free to give us a call or drop an email, because we may have looked at it, we may not have. So.
Does El Pomar have any money?
We haven't asked him for fuel mitigation money, but we can always ask.
John, we really appreciate you coming tonight to update us on where these two grants stand. It's been very helpful. Are there any other questions for John while we have him? This is a rare opportunity.
I have one.
Okay.
Kelly Hunter. I am wondering, are we in need of any in-kind for these grants? I have some people in Woodland Park that do firewood ministry, and they cut trees and they split and they deliver to people in need.
And
I've talked to
with
them
in the past, and a lot of the projects we're working, especially on Mitigation, we're not getting a whole lot of firewood out of. But if there's a possibility, we have 945 of in-kind written into the grant. Also, that was for town people on parcel identification and right-of-ways and stuff.
You have how much for
945. It was just 35 hours at 27 an hour. Usually a lot of the rates are set by the grantor. So I'm trying to think, we don't want to put people in too dangerous position on a steep slope. For Thomas Trail, I know they were cutting some pretty big stuff, but it'd be pretty difficult to get it out of there. So I'll have Adrian look at the right of way you were talking about. I own an right of way and stuff, and see if that's a possibility to get some firewood out of there too. The other thing we'll do with private landowners for bigger trees is we'll cut and buck them up and leave them for the landowner.
What if we did some fundraisers as the weather improves?
Fundraisers are always good. The more you can throw towards it, the more we can get accomplished. I mean, right
Well,
now.
And it also calls attention to the need that way.
Yeah, one of the things we did too, and we haven't heard, but we put in for a grant for education because it's so important with landowners. Green Mountain's probably a lot like Teller County. You have a lot of absentee landowners. They come in the summertime, they want to be around their trees and the wildlife and stuff. They don't want to cut trees. We run into that a lot. And then of course, the other part of mitigation is home hardening. And we're trying to get that message out too. It isn't just cutting trees. It's looking at your house and not stacking your firewood next to the house, and screening off your vents and having the right roofing materials and different things. So anytime we can raise awareness is good. What we have found and what social sciences showed is that people become pretty apathetic until there's flames on the ground. Well, by then it could be too late, and we want to get ahead of that.
Any other questions for John? Okay, John, looks like you're off the hook now.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting in. Appreciate it.
At least for tonight.
For tonight. Thanks.
But thanks again for coming, and you please stay on with this because I'm going to get CJ to talk to us next about her thoughts on going forward, assuming that we are successful in the co-swap grant, which, by the way, we don't know yet. We won't know until I think the end of March is when the first notification is. So we have a month to keep our fingers crossed. So CJ, you had sent an email, I think, sort of with some thoughts about what it was you wanted to get answers on from Green Mountain Falls relative to the application that we made. If you want to just take a moment and talk about that, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hey everybody, I'm CJ Runge. I'm the regional manager at Mile High Youth Court in Colorado Springs. And yeah, I'm thinking we might even have some good news about your application potentially as soon as this week. Our Denver office got a call today about some applications from partners that were submitted on the February 14th deadline, or really first round due date, if you will. And those applications were funded, and I don't want to speak too soon, but they did kind of suggest that they would be calling our Springs office next. So I think, potentially we could be celebrating hopefully a successful application this week. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I do think we'll find out sooner than the March 31st deadline. And I do think that we should be optimistic that your application is going to get funded. But we'll wait and see, and just see what happens. But I'm feeling pretty optimistic. Other staff here are feeling optimistic, and so something that I'm working on pretty actively right now is lining out our summer and fall season for the year. We're running 12 crews across our summer and our fall seasons. We'll have 7 crews this summer. And what would be really helpful to me in building out our schedule is discussing some potential dates that we could schedule the 12 weeks if we are to receive funding, which again, not official, but feeling optimistic. So I had, in your application, you had suggested potentially a July start date, which is totally fine, and we could make that work. But I did want to throw out, the potential to have this 12-week project be an entire cruise season. So our summer service crews, they operate for 12 weeks at a time. And I think it would be really beneficial for the same crew to be on this same project in order to be the most productive. You know, I think sometimes when we're shifting crews or mixing up different crews on a project, there is some, there can be situational awareness lost or work completed to date, you know, potentially lost. Of course, if we needed to have more than one crew assigned to this project, we would try to address that as best we could. Alternatively, I think we could potentially schedule this work to be all on one crew. So the dates listed here, May 24th through 24th through August 12th. That is an entire crew summer season. It's 12 weeks, and it would be the same crew and the same folks working on this project.
If I can interrupt,
Yeah.
CJ, for just a minute, this is David. So I'm not going to speak officially because when we made our grant application, I think Nate Scott was designated as the manager of the project for the town. So ultimately, I think the town staff will make the decisions regarding dates. But I wanted to give some background on why we said July. It was really, we were just kind of looking at the standpoint that when we originally started the grant application, that we were going to apply for 25 weeks. And we felt like from the time the grant was awarded at the end of March, there would need to be a planning cycle, you know, to determine exactly where the crews would work and what the time schedule would be and all those sort of logistics. And so we were giving ourselves a lot of time to get that planning done. So that's how July became the beginning point. So I just wanted to give you that background. And as I said, ultimately Nate and Becky will make the decision, I think, as to, you know, when they want to schedule this work. But from my perspective, I think May 24th through August 12th would be great if we could get the work done and complete sooner the better. So that's just my 2 cents and a little background.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like, you know, May 24th, if that potential start date, we'd have plenty of time to plan and get everything kind of situated by that date for a 12-week project opposed to 25?
Well, again, I can't speak officially. That's Nate and Becky, so I'm going to defer to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm totally interested to hear what Nate and Becky, what you have to say.
I'll defer to Becky as far as my schedule is concerned. I think it does, you know, the sooner the better, but I don't know if I think I can do my best to absorb it in my work, but my boss is Becky, so I'll defer to her.
Oh man, I feel like I should defer to my boss, Todd, but you know, I think that probably the cutting back the 12 weeks or back down to the 12 weeks, you guys have a pretty good idea of what needs to occur. And certainly, you know, as long as you have identified those areas where you can begin the work and, you know, and then kind of looking at how it will play out from there. I don't have an issue with it. I think that there's a lot of time saved in not having to retrain and reorient a crew for sure. And I'm fully supportive of that. And I'm, you know, willing to support Nate with anything that needs to happen there. So I have no issue. Nate, you'll just have to communicate with me if there's things that you need to get done with this and you need me to take something else, let me know. We'll get it done. It's just a matter of, you know, I think the only other consideration that I had was making sure that it's interfacing nicely with the work that CUSP is going to be doing.
Could we flip to the map that was part of our application? Since you brought that up, Becky, about coordinating with CUSP, I think it would be good if both CJ and John could sort of see the map. Might be helpful.
Yeah, and then, you know, probably going into this project once announced, it'd be great to have a pre-project meeting.
Yeah, we can really, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, I'm trying to bring up that map while you guys talk.
And Becky, if I can help with anything as well, just let me know. I'm retired. I've got time on my hands, so whatever's needed.
Thanks,
Ditto,
boss.
me too.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, as soon as we hear from the program administrators, Courtney and Allison, we can start getting to work on logistics and setting up site visits and planning meetings. Yeah, that sounds great.
CJ, I think that that green parcel that says number 1 is our top priority for Mile High Youth Corps and the COSWAP grant. And that is that's 16 acres of town-owned land there. That was I think that was the designated number 1 in our grant application.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's correct. And then this white space that I'm sort of highlighting here, that's the area that CUSP has been working in right here along Thomas Trail. So just FYI. And then this red area actually, I think about that. I think this red area here is that Iona Scott, just FYI. But this area is where CUSP has been doing the work along Thomas Trail.
So yeah, this would all tie together nicely to sort of have the 2 projects close the, or I should say, open up a fire break along the Thomas Trail. So John, that I think gives you some idea of visually of what we're looking at.
Yes. Yep. I like it.
So CJ, what do you need then as far as input from us? Have you gotten what you needed from us and from what Becky and Nate have said tonight, or is there some follow-up that we need to do for your planning purposes, assuming we get the grant?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really about it. If you all are okay with sticking with that tentative, May through mid-August, those dates, that gives me what I need. I'll work our schedule around that. I'll reserve those weeks for this project and keep my fingers crossed. But that was really about it. And from here, I'll just wait to hear from Courtney and Allison, and then we can go on from hopefully receiving some good news.
Outstanding. Well, we want to thank you for being with us tonight, and also for bringing this opportunity to us a few weeks ago so that we could get our application in for this funding, because we desperately need all the help we can get.
Yeah, of course. We're ecstatic that you all submitted an application, and I really do think we'll be celebrating soon. So thanks for inviting me to join tonight and being open to these dates. I think it's a good move. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So neither Rich nor Dan have joined the call tonight. So obviously we are not having an official meeting, but I do think we've accomplished a lot tonight to inform the leadership of our town, both the paid town staff as well as the Board of Trustees and Mayor-elect as to what is going on with regard to CUSP, the CUSP project and the Mile High Youth Corps project. So I think we've accomplished a lot, even though this is not an official meeting of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. New business for tonight was to vote on the application of Kelly Hunter to join the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. I think there was a comment earlier about just going ahead and referring Kelly to the Board of Trustees for action on her application. And I'm fine to do that. Look forward to talking with you, Kelly. I'm going to be in Green Mountain Falls from March 8th to March 29th. If we could find a time to meet at the pantry or talk on the phone or something, and I'd like to meet you and talk to you.
Yeah, that would work for me.
So
I'm not currently working unless they call me into sub.
okay, all right. So does I'll open it up to anyone else who's on the call who may have some questions or comments. You know, I know Sean and Nick are both on, who are trustees elect, and Nick is not normally very quiet. He normally is someone who's very willing to talk. So Nick, I know you must be having some questions you want to answer.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You guys hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. As of right now, you know, I'm just, of course, learning about these committees and, you know, just listening. You know, assessment to be determined, but I think you guys have been pretty squared away for all the years you guys have volunteered. So at least just for right now, I hope you guys don't, of course, mind me just sitting back and listening as I am trying to familiarize myself with everything that's going on with fire mitigation and has been for years now. I look forward to working with all of you and meeting you one-on-one. That's for sure. So you ever need to reach out to me, of course, I will provide that contact information, or surely Todd or my neighbor David Douglas could as well. So you know, feel free to contact me whenever you need me.
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else?
I just want to say thanks, everyone. This is actually a very productive meeting from my perspective, so appreciate it.
Well, thank you for attending, Todd. I think it's helpful to have you know firsthand what's going on with regard to the fire mitigation efforts. All right. Well, thank you all again. And I look forward to the next time that we meet and talk. John, thank you. CJ, thank you especially for attending.
Have a
Thanks
good
all.
night.
Good night.